Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And usually in this segment, I use it to roast people or to laugh about funny things or ridiculous things going on in the community or just interesting news. But today, I'm going to take the path less traveled, and I'm actually going to say that I was sent a video by another good-sized YouTuber that was actually really good. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skill at my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. I know, right? People are going to be like, what, Jason saying another fitness YouTuber isn't a complete moron? Well, there are some smart guys out there. There's actually some good information out there. It's just the majority are morons who are basically preaching to willful idiots. And that's just the reality of it. That's a simple fact if you observe it and know anything about training. And again, it's all just drugs and glamour and everything else. And meaning even the guys who are claiming natty are all on drugs. But this guy, Sean, someone linked me this video. Like, hey, Jason, I think you will actually appreciate this video. And I checked it out this morning. And what I realized was, yeah, it's actually a pretty good video. Well, what I want to say when I say that about this video, I don't know much about this guy. I had someone ask me before about some of his supplement line. You guys know I don't like supplements. I don't believe in supplements. I don't really know anything about him. I don't know anything else about what he does, what he sells, what he has to say. I am judging this video by itself. And when I watched it, I found myself nodding, saying, yeah, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. I don't know about any other topic, but I know definitely when it comes to the topic of muscle growth for drug-free lifters, he knows his shit. He knows his shit. And what he said in this video is that he pointed out that, and he said this is true of everyone, but it's especially true of novices and intermediate, that if you gain strength, you build a strength base on your basic exercises, gaining muscle will be a side effect. And he went so far as to say that this is the fastest way to gain muscle. Now, there's a lot of people who tell you this. I've been telling you guys this for years. You guys have seen people like Ripto and the Starting Strength guys tell you this. Hell, Matt Ogus came out with a video saying this the other day, right? Where all have been telling all of you guys for years, all this other fluff and pump, look, it has its place, but if you're trying to get jacked as quickly as possible, you need to get as strong as you possibly can on the basic exercises. And what Sean said in this video equated to that. It's the same message we've all been telling you guys. We've all been telling you, a lot of us have, for a long time. And what he said is that, you can do a bunch of drop sets, and you can do supersets, and you can do all this high volume pump work. You can do that stuff, and you might make gains, and you very possibly will. It has its place. He goes, but the quickest way for you to really make gains and to really transform your physique and stack on some overall size is to, get your dumbbell presses up to where you can do full range of motion with 100-pound dumbbells for reps. Well, I would say barbell. I'm a fan of the barbell. I'm not a big fan of dumbbells. Not to say they don't have their place. I just think the barbell brings a little more to the table. But, that's my opinion. I'm not going to disagree with his point there. He said, get to where you can squat 3 plates aside for reps. Yep, that's what I tell novices. That's my goal for novices. I want you guys to get 315 for 5 reps, right? That's my goal for most of you guys to build a base. And he says, get to like some weight chin-ups to where you can do chin-ups with 60 pounds of plates hanging. Yeah, that's all good stuff. Actually, all 3 of those things he set as goals, and he just gave those as examples. But he said if you can do all 3 of those things, then there's no way you're not going to have built a decent amount of respectable size through your entire body. And I very much agree with him. I think he hit the nail right on the head. He hit the nail right on the head. And when we were talking about all these other things that we can do as far as workload and frequency and everything else, he pointed out that resistance, adding tension, adding weight to the bar, adding weight to the dumbbell, is the only method that you can use indefinitely. Everything else has finite limits. And I also agree with that, because we all know that progressive overload can come through different methods, right? It can come through adding weight to the bar. It can come by adding reps. You can come by adding sets, or in theory by workload density. But what do we know about workload density? That actually hasn't panned out very well in the studies. But he addressed it, all these different forms of progressive overload. And what Sean said is, look, How many reps are you really going to add? I mean, at what point, let's say you build up to where you can do 10 reps with this weight, then you do 11, then 15, then 20. At a certain point, it does start to get ridiculous. You're just doing a bunch of nothing and spending a lot more time in the gym for almost no gains if you just keep adding reps and reps and reps and reps. I mean, eventually, in theory, you'd be up to where you're doing 50 or 100 reps, and you're going to get to a point to where you can't meaningfully stimulate growth. That method will wear out. Even though it works, meaning if you can do 20 reps with a weight, you're probably going to be bigger for all the muscles involved than when you were doing 9 or 10 reps with that weight. No one's going to argue with that. That's true. But it's not efficient. It's not the most efficient way to go about it. And it's not to say some real high rep work can't be used sometimes to bring up some weak points, because it has its place for that, but not really for your main base building. It's sometimes more involved in the area of weak point training, whether it's athletic or aesthetic. Same thing when it comes to adding sets. You know, realistically, how many sets are you going to add? I mean, let's say you're working with 135 pounds on squats, and you're doing 5 sets every workout. Then you go to 6 sets, then 7 sets. Then you're doing 10 sets of squats every time you're at the gym. Well, that starts to really accumulate. Now, I'm not saying I don't advocate doing up to 10 sets for your big lifts, because I've written programs where you do that. But there is a finite limit to that, because eventually what are you going to do? 15 sets of squats, 20 sets of squats 3 times a week, 30 sets of squats 3 times a week, so that you can keep using 135 on the bar? You know, for long you're going to be doing 30 sets of 20 with just a plate on each side of the bar and gaining almost nothing for your effort, and you're going to spend your whole damn day doing squats. And again, he's right. Same thing with frequency. You know, yeah, training a muscle twice a week is good. I usually tell people that's your baseline, that's your minimum. And then, you know, you can increase it to 3 times. And if you start training a muscle 3 times a week with the same sets and reps you did before, you will grow from it. And then you can go to 4, then 5, then 6, then 7. So yeah, you could squat and bench every 7 days a week, which I've done. You guys have seen me do that with Bulgarian training. But then what happens? If you stop progressing there, what do? You got to start squatting twice a day. Then what do? Squat and bench 3 times a day, 7 days a week, 21 sessions every week. You know, there's going to be a point to where it's not practical anymore to use this for overload. But what you can always do is continue to add weight to the bar. You can always get to a point to where you add 5 pounds. You can always get to a point to where you add 1 pound, even if you have to get micro plates. You know, let's say you've been benching, 225 for 3 sets of 8 or 3 sets of 10. You can always, if you're there, you can always get some microplates and go to 226, 227, so that you can work up to where you can do your work sets with 235, right? You can always add incremental amounts of weight at a certain point, and you can do this for years and years on end. If you load with it slow and you're careful with the programming, in theory, you can continue to add weight to an exercise for 10 years, for 15 years. And as you add weight to it, you will gain muscle, right? And the studies confirm this. This has been looked at. What do we know when we look at all that data that Dr. Brad and Brett Contreras and Greg Knuckles and all of them compiled about the 1 rep max on the squat and muscle mass? They found that the amount of muscle mass that a person had was relative to their height was the number 1 factor in determining how much they could squat for a 1 rep max. It determined at least 85% of what your max was. And that you could take someone's height and lean body mass and you could estimate based upon those numbers alone into their calculator within 10% of estimating what their real max squat was, without looking at any of their training methods or technique or anything. That's pretty interesting. So we do know that for natural, size does equal strength, but again, relative to your personal leverages, your frame, and your height, right? So that's why you do see different people who have different strength levels who might appear to have different levels of muscle. There's a few other factors involved. But for you as a person, you can't change your leverages. You can't change your height. You can't change your insertion points or your muscle fiber distribution. That is a constant. So for you, the more weight you can lift on any given exercise, the larger the muscles are going to be involved in that exercise, unless you change something in the leverages to make it different, such as cheating or changing range of motion or something else. And he presented, just an idea of that, particularly if you're not an advanced lifter, you need to be seeking to add something every time you go to the gym. And he presented the exact same old school progression method I threw out to you guys a few years ago. I said, look, for people who don't want to do any sort of complex programming, you could work on something like working with 5 rep sets on lifts and try to add a rep when you can. And when you can get to 6 reps on all your sets, you know, you get to 6 and then try to add a 7th rep here or there somewhere. And when you can get to 7 reps on all your sets, go to 8 reps. Then when you get to 8 or whatever, you can add 5 pounds or a similar amount to the exercise. And then what happens? Then you start over and reset it. He proposed something very similar to that as an example. And it goes to show you guys, I promise you, Sean didn't get that from me. Do you know how I know that? Because people say, well, how do you know he didn't copy that from you? Because that is an old school time-proven method that people were using back in the 50s and 60s to get jacked, right? People were doing that on squats and bench and dips and rows and deadlifts and all of this stuff. And the overhead press, they were doing this in the 50s and 60s, where you just accumulate a rep here and there. And when you get to your target reps, you add a little bit of weight and start over. That is one of the oldest time-proven, old school methods of getting jacked, and that people were doing that before they had access to steroids, before they were popular, and it worked really, really well. And he basically just rehashed and said, hey, you can do this and it will work. And I've presented the same thing. So he's probably going back to what he's seen and, you know, all the older techs and what the old school guys used to do, and realized that it works. He's probably seen people do it and had clients do it and stuff, and they got results. And he's saying, look, you can do this to do it real slow. It'll take a while, but you can always continually progress, and you should be seeking to continually progress. And he's absolutely right. This is very, very similar to what I've been telling you guys over the years. So having seen this video, I will say, you know, he and I are coming from the same concept here when it comes to building muscle. We're looking at the same ideas, the same evidence, the same stuff that has been time proven forever and was time proven before people had access to all these anabolics, which kind of changes the game. So yeah, I very much liked the video. I appreciated the video. I thought he presented it very well, and I'm going to go ahead and give Sean 2 thumbs up on this video, which you guys know I don't do often. I usually trash other people's garbage ass videos. In this case, I'm gonna have to say job well done, man. Good video. Rock on, brother. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.